even later. So we're going to do a restorative practice. So we'll use strap, bolster, blanket, blocks, and probably even a chair for the forward fold. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's come down to the ground. We're going to start with child's pose. Oh, where am I? Lost my. There we go. Okay. We're going to start with child's pose with a bolster. Yeah.
My daughter's here. Do you mind if she joins?
Not at all. Yeah, have her come in. If you've got the props, that'd be awesome.
Liz, do you want to do a yoga class?
Okay, we're going to start with um, child's pose. And a thing I want you to think of as you come into your version of child's pose is I want you to view yourself once you get into position and you take a few breaths, kind of like zoom out. Like if you could come out and like look down at the shape that you're in based on how things are feeling. And that shape was expressing itself like a water fountain. You know, where is there like pooling or stagnation, and where is there like movement of the water? And in child's pose, really we want water to be able to flow off both ends of us. So we don't want to be too back on our heels. We don't want to be too pitched forward. We want to prop the body in a way so that if water was like coming out at the bra strap, it would flow over our head and tail smoothly. Okay? So, child's pose. You might bring the bolster and tuck it in between your legs, your knees a little bit. Others of us might actually scoot it. I'm going to today further back, so now I'm able to sit on it. So my pelvis is on the bolster. Then I'm going to take a blanket and place it near the top of that bolster. So as I come down, it's just a little lift under the chest for me. And then I'm going to stack my hands in fists and rest my forehead. Well, I've kind of got one fist up like this and one fist like this. And I'm going to rest my forehead. If you had the bolster further out so that it's not under the pelvis, so you've got more out at the head here, then you'd simply turn your head and have one ear. You know what? That might be yeah. This actually is good here. I'm just going to change the blanket fold a little bit. So that it's more in line with the bolster than this way, because I want a little bit just at the top of like where my collarbones are. Yeah, that's good. That little bit of a lift gives my shoulders and neck a bit of space. Whereas when I was this way, it was like I was feeling like I was kind of like caving in at the base of my neck. So, you know, give yourself another moment or two to kind of explore the different setups that you could use with this so that you're feeling like off of the hips, water flows back off the shoulders to the floor, water is flowing head to tail, water is flowing. And because I've got my head turned, we're going to be here for about 3 minutes. So after about 90 seconds, I will cue us in the pose so that we can turn our head the other way if you also have your head turned. And the breath is another place that you can you can check in and have the sense of like that breath, moving like water, and where is it moving in this pose for you? Two more breaths here, and then if your head is turned, we're going to turn it the other way. Again, just noticing the flow of your breath. Again, imagining like if this pose was a water fountain. What's your sense of where the water flows easily, smoothly, where the water isn't like rushing or pooling? And we'll do 3 more breaths here. And then use your arms and hands to press your torso up off that bolster. Sink your weight back into your heels. Just take a second here. I want to offer one other setup for this that some of us might benefit from the next time we do this practice, and that is the blanket. So I did a single fold, so I had a little bit more elevation kind of from my head to the collarbones, and that gave me some space through the chest and the front of the shoulders. Another way would be if I just rolled up that and rolled up that, so I end up with my towel or blanket looking like so. Then when I come down onto it, my chest is lower, but I can create these little rolls that my arms drape over, and for some of us that will give us more space kind of through the back of the shoulder and into the neck. So just something, another, way to set it up that you might consider and that some of us might benefit from to get that space. So if you feel like you're kind of, the arm is hitting the ground and like creasing the back of the shoulder, or you feel jammed up in your neck, this would be another kind of propping that you could explore in it. Okay, so we're gonna shift the bolster out of the way, And we're gonna need our strap. I also like to, if you have the option, to set up near a wall. The wall is a great prop to be utilized here in this pose as well. And so we're going to put a loop in our strap. And I like to set it up so that the tail of my strap, once I get it in position on my leg, is up near my hip, and I'm able to pull the tail towards my head. Okay, so once you put the loop in it, you're going to position the buckle and the tail of the strap, okay, up near your right outer hip. So I'm going to come down onto my back. I've got my right knee in that strap loop with the tail towards my head. And then I'm going to stretch out my left leg so that I catch the front of my right hip in the strap and the ball of my left foot. So I've got it across my right hip with my right leg up towards my chest. Then I stretch my left leg out, so maybe the ball or the MTP joint of that left foot can hit the wall. And then I can pull on that tail to get the right tension so that this strap kind of helps fold that right femur back into the hip socket. And then I'm just going to grab either the shin or back of the thigh of that right leg. And the other propping that can be helpful here is if getting here, you notice that you're getting kind of pulled, your rib cage is getting kind of pulled or lifted off the floor, or your head is kind of like your nose is rolling and higher or lower than your chin and mouth kind of thing. So we're creasing the back of the neck. You could solve that. Again, this idea of like water flowing by placing a blanket underneath kind of the upper shoulders so that it helps the lower rib cage kind of settle back into the floor. Again, lengthening out the back of the neck, back of the skull. So that's a nice option. And then with the wall, I don't like my heel necessarily on the ground, but I find kind of that transverse arch can reach into the strap and into the wall. And again, just notice how the breath flows. Is there a sense of it, going head to foot, tip to tip? You might kind of explore that right foot, the transverse arch or the ball of that foot. Not necessarily overly creasing the front of the ankle or pointing the toes, but kind of having a relaxed front of the ankle. And then, sort of stretching across that transverse arch. Maybe even stretching from the ball of the foot back to the heel. And I'm playing with a little bit of thinking of the heel in the strap, that left outstretched leg, like heel under my butthole here. And then on the right heel, letting it kind of come in a little bit too, but not to the degree that like it rotates externally this leg. So I don't have any pressure down into the foot. But again, it kind of is under the butthole towards the front of the butthole, whereas the heel of my left outstretched leg is more to the back of the butthole. So you might feel a stretch in the front of the left hip. You might feel a stretch across the upper, butt or along the bra strap area as well. But it's not so much of a stretch anywhere that if we stayed here for 5 minutes, it would start to distract you or deter from you being in this shape. So with the next exhale, you're going to place that right foot on the floor. We'll scoot that loop off of that hip, and then you're going to stretch that right leg out into the strap and hook it on the front of that left hip crease. So again, once you get the right leg reached out, you might pull up on that strap to get the right tension across the front of that right hip for yourself. Play with finding that transverse arch out into the strap or the wall if you're also utilizing a wall. And then again, think of the position of the heels relative to the butthole here. And there should be a sense of the legs like scissoring or reaching out in an opposite direction from one another. Consider the flow of the water for you in this pose. Does it flow out toes to the tip of the head, out to the fingers? Three more breaths here. Good. With your next exhalation, let go of that left shin thigh. Let that left foot come to the floor. We'll just scoot the strap off both legs. You can bring both feet to the floor and just take a second here. And then you'll roll to your side if you're on a blanket so we can scoot that prop out from underneath you. And just come onto your back for a second. Legs can stretch out long or knees can stay bent. And just notice what you notice. We're going to use the same props with the exception of we're going to add a block here. With this setup though, you're probably going to want to use your strap and the loop so that the tail on your strap, you can pull it up towards the ceiling um, in order to put the right tension into it for you. So rather than having it this way and pulling it down towards the floor, um, we're going to set up so that we can pull it up towards the ceiling. So roll to your side. We're going to come up to a seated position and put our upper chest back, like adjacent to our chest, our upper back in the strap. So we're not below the shoulder blades. We're definitely on the shoulder blades here with this. And then we're going to utilize one of our blocks. Actually, we can utilize two blocks, or you'll have to move the one block with your foot. So I'll set up my 2 blocks. Then I'm going to come down onto my back. Again, the blanket underneath the upper back head can be a great prop here. So from here with this loop, I'm going to place the right ball of the foot on it, and I want to have it tight enough that the foot reaching creates a reaching back of the rib cage, but doesn't have me feel like I lock out the hip or the knee on that leg. So I'm able to create some work, just a little bit, in that reaching leg, my right leg, out through that transverse arch, okay? And a simultaneous reaching back into the strap of the rib cage. Now, I could stay right here like this, but in this pose, we also want to get some extension in that other hip. So while we reach into the strap, I can reach out that other leg, of which I got to inchworm myself because I'm too short. Yeah, with the heel elevated on the block. And so then that left leg is also reaching out. Again, think transverse arch. So it's not like we want to have the heel be heavy. It's not like I want to have a lot of activation through the front of that ankle necessarily. I want to find that transverse arch, and even that idea of like when we are in standing and we kind of find our Q angle, that idea kind of here with the legs reaching in oppositional directions and then the rib cage reaching back into that strap. Arms could be at your side. I also in this one really love my arms overhead, and I could use the bolster too and place that up and bring those arms up here. And there's a sense of reaching out through all the limbs. And the back body into the floor as well. So there's this sense of us reaching out in all directions, crown of the head, at the fingertips, at the ball of each foot, at the back of the skull, the back rib cage, the back of the pelvis. Okay, and just take a few moments here. Notice the sides of the waist, left and right. Long waist on both sides. Okay, with our next inhale, that left leg that's stretched out long, you're going to place it back on the floor for a second, and then bring your hands up to the strap. And then the left foot's going to come up and replace the right foot in that strap, the ball of the foot right across that strap. Then bring the right foot to the floor. Get yourself situated so that you have the amount of tension in that strap for the reach with that left leg. Kind of find length on that left side of the waist. And then once you've got that in the sense of reaching the back body back into the strap, reach out that right leg. And it's not, there's some work happening here. There's like this sense of yielding where we're interacting with gravity, but we haven't like locked out or braced anything. We haven't kind of collapsed. And yeah, there's just this like gentle omnidirectional reach out into all of the limbs, the crown of the head, the sides of the waist. And there might be a sense of just like micro um, movements that keep that sense of length and reach in the body out through each of the limbs, the crown of the head, and the waist, adjusting as we're here and we're breathing. Get a few more breaths here. And then you're going to bring the hands up onto the strap, fold that left leg out of the strap, bring both feet to the floor. We'll roll to our side to slip this strap off of us. And then you'll just have to kind of play a little bit. We're going to go into a variation of fish pose. So fish pose, it is a back bend. So we do want to have some extension in the spine. And like with child's pose, that extension of the spine, we want the water to just be able to flow, from the chest to the head and then down to the pelvis and then out through the legs, this sense. So it might be that you use a yoga block. Some of us, the yoga block is going to work better this way. Some of us, the yoga block is going to work better this way. Okay? Now, I like the foam ones for on my rib cage. Some of us, the block is going to work better for our head there. And then a short roll using the blanket is going to work better. Some of us this way, and some of us this way. So you're just going to have to kind of play with it. But again, feel for like, what are the arms, shoulders doing? Does the neck have space? Is there a sense again that the water can flow freely this way and this way through your structure when you get set up? So I kind of know my body in this pose and how it's feeling today. So I'm going to start with this setup and see then how I need to adjust it. Okay, I need a little bit more height. But I think the roll is going to be too big. So I'm going to take some of that roll out and give that a whirl. So legs are out long. So I feel a teeny tiny bit congested at the base of my neck, like where my neck and my torso meet. So I'm just going to give one little, there we go. So I adjusted the block that was going vertical on my spine and the roll fold. I'm getting a little spinal adjustment. A little pop pop. Feels nice. So again, have a sense and feel for like, is there space for you in this shape? There's no right way to set up this, one right way to set up this pose. The block asks a lot of, requires a lot of like malleability of the rib cage and the thoracic spine. So it might be that that roll that I made with the blanket, maybe that goes across and is what is giving you the lift through here. And then you've got the block on the lowest setting and your head is on that, or maybe you roll the yoga mat and that is under your occipital ridge, and then your arms can kind of go in between those two rolls. As you breathe in and you breathe out, And notice the qualities in this shape of where you feel movement of the breath, where you feel like the subtle stretching, reaching, pulling to while you're in this shape. Feel the quality of the arc for you from the throat to the solar plexus, maybe the navel. Check in with the feet and the legs. We don't want them to just be limp. Make sure there's a sense of reaching out through the ball of the foot, the first and fifth MTP joints. Okay, with your next exhale, you'll stand one foot up on the floor and then the other. Then I like to bring a hand beside the head, whichever direction it is that I'm going to start to roll off of my props and onto my side. And then I can scoot the props that I had off the mat and bring yourself onto your back for a few breaths. Okay. Okay, good. We're still recording. Okay. Oh, it feels so glorious. Okay. So we're going to do prone twist. And prone twists are tricky. Um, they are tricky. Twists are hard, and prone twists are tricky. So it might look like, oh, that's easy, but we have trouble rotating, twisting. So with this one, we want to experience rotation. Okay, and the bolster is a prop that I like to use. Another option, if you don't have the bolster, is if you have blankets, I can open this up to where I've folded it in half and folded it in half. And then I could do like a 4 Z fold and set up 2 of those on top of each other. That gives me, 2 or 3 of those on top of each other. I could do that with bath towels. That will give me kind of that height and length of a bolster. Okay. So if you're like, Dawn, I don't have a bolster, that you're gonna fold a couple of blankets in half and then half again, and then Z fold them, and you'll stack them on top of one another, and you'll get a bolster like shape. Okay, so with this one, we're going to take both legs to one side, and I like to angle my bolster because if my legs are here, I want to twist myself away from where my legs are facing. So I want to get this side of my torso, I want to have it find the bolster. And this side kind of be rotated off the bolster. That's going to bring me into a twist. Whereas if I am here and I just bring this side down to the bolster, now there's not really any twist happening. Okay? So if I bring this onto a bit of an angle, then I can start to lower down, and I'm thinking about bringing this side of my torso and chest to the bolster, and I just bring that cheek down. Some of us, head turned away from the way the legs are facing is going to be way too intense. So we will be facing that same direction. Okay? Now, if when you come down into that twist, you're kind of like, I don't feel very twisty, or I feel like this arm on the side away from my legs like isn't really grounded or on anything. If I wanted to experience a bit more twist, I'm going to place a prop on that other side of the bolster so that as I rotate down, if I bring my forearm up onto it, see how that rotates me? Right? It lowers this side of the rib cage, twisting me more. Whereas if I place this on this side of the bolster, see how that twists me the other way. Okay? So you want to prop the forearm of the other side of the bolster from where your legs are facing. That will get you more rotation. I'm going to add a little bit of a lift at that one end for the block. That's too high. Maybe I just use my hand. And then you can, yeah, that gives me enough of a lift. Again, with this one, it gets tricky in the shoulders and the neck. So play with things. Sometimes just a rolled towel or a chunk of like a pool noodle sort of stuck in front of the armpits. For some of us, it'll again create that like water flowing across the shoulders and not pooling anywhere effect. I'm just going to show you one arm position for that front arm. Two that can help that sense is if I bring this arm down, maybe I place it between the knees or the shins,
but for some of us, like that actually might get us that sense across the backs of the shoulders and the front of the shoulders where the collarbone is, where you aren't like buckling or bracing anywhere, and it supports the twist that you're going for. Some others, this will not work at all, what I've just demonstrated. So give it a try. Notice the change in your breath, and again, the sense of flowing water in your body in this pose. And you could play too with the leg positions, like this top leg. Maybe I bring it out here. That would help anchor the turn or the rotation of the pelvis. Maybe I take this top leg and drop it behind the bottom leg. For others, that will anchor at the knee, this turn from the knee through the pelvis up the body. Two more breaths here, and then we'll transition to the other side. Good. Place the hands on either side of the bolster or your folded blanket stack. You're going to press yourself up, and then we'll set up on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to angle that bolster the other way. I may or may not use that fold. I'm going to come down. Oh, it's got a little adjustment. On this side, feels more like just taking my blanket fold and kind of putting it on half of the bolster and propping up this whole, I'm going to actually bring that down close to my hip, propping up this whole side of my torso. Little roll in the front of the shoulder. Oh yeah, and then I need that little fist underneath the bolster. Yeah, this on this side gets me that sense of like the back body, everything flowing from middle out to the edges, and then that rotation. Again, knees can stay on top of one another. this side, I've got my top knee resting in the crook on the inside of my bottom heel. Check in with the neck, back of the skull, across the back of the shoulders, across the front of the shoulders, bra strap area, low back. Those might all be spots where we tend to brace or buckle. Three more breaths here. Hey, do you want to come in? And then untwist the head if it's turned. Bring the hands underneath the shoulders. Shift your weight back into your hips. And we'll just scoot the bolster and the blanket to the side. Come in, OJ, if you want. Come in. Hi. Hi. Are you going to do yoga with us? Yeah, hi. Yeah. Okay. So we got a seated forward fold. This one is hard for lots of us. So present company included. So in a forward fold, we want the pelvis to be able to come forward. We want the rib cage to be able to come forward towards the legs. And lots of us, in order to get one of those to come forward, we might push another one of those back. So have a feel, and again, have a sense of like if you could come outside your body and kind of look back at it, like what are you sensing and feeling? Oh, gee, big stretches. Yeah, big stretches. Big stretches. Okay, so I'm gonna show you my forward fold. Yes, buddy. And I like using a chair for this one because it's a hard pose for me. So, which is like, I'm not down with the chair in the yoga. So I'm sitting on a folded blanket. I could be sitting on two blocks. I'm gonna bring the bolster up underneath my knees, and then I'm bringing the chair over top of my legs. So the front legs of the chair aren't touching the ground, and that's okay. Because now I'm going to reach my arms and bring my chest to the front edge of that chair and let my pelvis move on my legs. And then I've got like the upper collarbones are resting on that chair, and I'm able to kind of reach and ground through the legs. So I'm pressing the back of the thighs down into that bolster. I'm reaching gently out
through the transverse arch, the ball of the foot, the first MTP, fifth MTP joints. Letting the front of the pelvis come forward towards the top of the thighs. Rounding my low back. And for me now, I can tip, now I can get some movement and forward fold happening. And so I'm using the chair just to support my head and the draping of my arms here. But if I am so propped up that the pelvis can't really move on the legs at all, and if I'm so propped up from this starting position, so like if I didn't put the bolster underneath my legs, I'm going to stay sitting on the blanket because I don't want to jack myself up. But if I had this here, I'm going to stay sitting on the bolster. Maybe I could come here, but this isn't really a forward fold because can you see how the energy like of my low back is actually going that way? It hasn't spilled forward onto the thighs. So we don't want to just be so propped up that there's no space for the pelvis to move. With the bolster, I can get the legs active a little bit. That helps me. I'm going to go this way. Nope, I'm going to go this way again. Works better with the chair for me. Tipping that chair away, pelvis folds forward. My arms have something to reach and or like pull a little bit with. And again, setting up so that you could be happy being here for 3 minutes and like your low back's not going to be talking to you, your hamstrings aren't going to be talking to you. You will, yes, feel slight stretches in places, but at the end of 3 minutes, nothing's going to be aggravated. The props all just offering like gentle cues for you to be able to reach and lengthen and stretch kind of out into. That again gives the pose a sense of you yielding, working with gravity, not bracing or buckling in places. Three more breaths here. I'm really liking where this chair is because it gives me a cue through the crown of the head to reach and lengthen through. It's feeling really nice on my neck and across my shoulders. Okay, walk your hands up somewhere that you can kind of support yourself to roll back the pelvis, scoot the chair out of the way, and we've got our last restorative posture before Shavasana, and we actually are going to use the chair for it and the bolster. So, chair comes there, bolster, or could be the folded blanket. Bolster might be it's going to be, I think, too much for me. I think the folded blanket is going to work better. Whichever you choose, have them on either side of the chair. We're going to come up, and we don't want the legs at 90. We want the legs to be able to, my calves. I'm going to find like the sweet spot. There we go. And I'm letting the weight of the legs just kind of tip the chair towards me a little bit. It's quite nice. It provides a bit of tractioning for those thigh bones. Now, I could stay here. I could lift the hips and slide that folded blanket underneath the pelvis. I'm going to go for the support being of the pelvis so that like the top edge of the pelvis is heavy down towards the floor rather than the sit bones falling off the other side of the pelvis. So I don't want to extend the low back at all here. I want to keep it kind of some length in it and it a bit smoothed out. Okay, or I could, instead of the blanket, even get a bit more height, but I think the bolster is going to be too big for me maybe. And I could come up onto the bolster again. Oh, actually, I'm digging that. Okay, so again, I don't want the sit bones hanging off the bolster. I want my pelvis on the bolster and my legs to stretch out on the chair. So I would have a sense of like that water flowing down towards my head. I'm in a bit of an inversion here with the hips elevated. With your next exhalation, you're going to press your feet into the chair, lift your hips, scoot the bolster out, bring your pelvis flat onto the floor or onto a folded blanket. I've tipped my chair up on the front legs because it is doing a really nice job of supporting like from behind my knee down to my calves. It feels lovely. And then I'm going to take the bolster and just place it um, across my pelvis, and I could rest the arms on that bolster, or I could bring them down onto the floor underneath the bolster. So, and this is our final posture for the practice today. So as you settle here, just let your attention spread out to the edges of the body. Maybe to the edges of your mat and of the room that you're practicing in. Just letting your attention soften, diffuse, and expand. Gently start to bring your attention back into the room, onto the mat, into the edges of the body. Become aware of the sounds in the room you're practicing in and of my voice. Any sensations in the body of numbness or pressure or tingling or effervescent like fizzing. Gently start to bring movement back to the body. In whatever way feels right for you today. And you'll make your way onto a side. Just take a second on the side before you use your hand and arm. Press yourself up to a seated position. The pelvis and the legs support the spine, the torso, the arms, and the head. Maybe you bring the palms together in prayer position, or you let your hands gently rest in your lap. Just allow the gaze to be downward and inward for another few moments. Taking a final moment to just notice the rise and the fall, the natural rhythm of your breathing. Om Shanti Shanti Peace.